Have you ever walked into a room in your house, looked around, and thought, why do we even have this room anymore? And you're not joking. Like you're really standing there thinking, when was the last time anybody actually used this space? Now, if you've had that thought even once, there's a good chance your house might be starting to feel too big for the life you're living right now. If that's you, stay with me because I'm going to walk you through how to know if that's what's really happening, why so many people stay stuck in that feeling for way too long, and what to do next if you're downsizing right here in Volusia County. And listen, this happens way more often than people realize because at one point your house made perfect sense. You needed the extra bedrooms, you needed the bigger kitchen, you needed the bonus room, the loft, the formal dining room, all of it. Maybe the kids were home, maybe you were hosting holidays, maybe the house matched the pace of life you were in, but life changes. And sometimes the house just, well, it doesn't keep up. The formal dining room is basically decorative now. The guest room turned into a storage room with a bed in it. And half the closets in the house are full of stuff you haven't touched in years. And the funny part is, most people laugh when they talk about this, but deep down, it's not really funny because what they're really saying is this house doesn't fit us the same way anymore. And that's the big realization. So let's start here. Why does a house suddenly start feeling too big? The answer is actually pretty simple. Because the house was built for a version of your life that may not exist anymore. That's it. The house didn't become wrong overnight. It just stopped matching the season of life you're in. Now, my wife Cindy and I see this all the time with homeowners here in Volusia County. People who bought the family home, 20, 25 years ago, now they're looking around and they say, we don't use this house the same way anymore. And usually it starts with the little things. You get tired of cleaning rooms no one goes in. You start noticing the stairs a little more. You get annoyed with the yard work that used to not bother you. You realize you're paying to heat and cool space you're not really living in. And none of that feels dramatic at first, but eventually it adds up. And one day you walk into that extra room and think, why are we still doing this? And that's usually the moment. So let me give you 3 very real signs your house may be too big for your life right now. And if you recognize yourself in these, you're definitely not alone. Sign number 1, you're only living in part of the house. And this is probably the biggest one. If you're being honest, are there parts of the home you barely go into anymore? I'm not talking about once in a while. I mean rooms that are basically just there. A formal living room that nobody sits in. A guest room that gets used twice a year. The whole upstairs that feels more like a museum than a living space. And when that starts happening, it usually means the home is bigger than your actual daily life. Because most people aren't living in the whole house anymore. They're living in the kitchen, the bedroom, maybe the family room, and that's about it. Everything else becomes maintenance. Everything else becomes overhead. And that's a really important shift to notice. Now, sign number 2. The upkeep feels heavier than the benefit. Now, this one sneaks up on people, and it's not because the house doesn't usually feel too big at first. It feels too much cleaning, too much yard work, too much organizing, too many things to fix, to manage, to replace, to keep up with. And the truth is, a lot of people don't mind a bigger home when the benefits still outweigh the work. But once the work starts outweighing the lifestyle, that's when things shift. Now, I've had homeowners tell me, Michael, I feel like I spend more time taking care of this house than actually enjoying it. And that right there is huge because your house should support your life, not become your part-time job. Now, number 3, you've started imagining something simpler. And this is the one people usually keep to themselves for a while. They'll start thinking things like, what if we had a smaller place? What if everything was on one floor? What if we had less to manage? What if we were closer to things that matter most? And once those thoughts start showing up, that matters. Because usually by the time you're imagining something simpler, your current home is already starting to feel heavier than it should. And that doesn't mean something is wrong. It usually means you're ready for a different kind of fit. Now let's talk about something really important. Why do so many people stay in a house too long, even when they know it doesn't fit anymore? Well, I'll tell you why. It's almost never because they love the extra square footage. It's because change feels bigger than discomfort. That's what it is. Because downsizing isn't just a housing decision. It's an emotional decision. It brings up a lot of memories, of milestones, the life you built there. The idea of letting go of the family home, and that's real. This is not just about closets and bedrooms and square footage. This is about identity sometimes. It's about saying that season of life was amazing and now we're moving into the next one. And that can be emotional even when it's the right thing. So what happens? People stay. Not because they're happy in the house, but because the idea of making a move feels overwhelming. And honestly, a lot of people stay stuck for one simple reason. They think downsizing means needing to have everything figured out before they start, and that's just not true. You do not need to know exactly where you're going. You do not need to have every detail solved. You do not need to be packed, purged, sorted, and emotionally ready all at once. You just need a starting point. That's it. And once people realize that, everything gets lighter. Now, here's where this gets exciting, because I think downsizing gets framed the wrong way all the time. People hear the word downsizing and they immediately think less space, smaller house, giving something up, but that's not actually what most people are moving toward. What they're moving toward is more freedom in your time, more freedom in your schedule, more freedom from the constant upkeep, more ease. A home that works with your life now, not a home that made sense 20 years ago. More flexibility. Less house to worry about means more ability to travel, enjoy weekends, spend time with the family, or just breathe a little more. More alignment, and this one matters a lot, because when your home fits your life again, everything just feels easier. You're not paying attention to rooms you don't use. You're not constantly thinking about projects you don't want to deal with. You're not dragging around a lifestyle that doesn't match where you are anymore. And I'll tell you something else we see all the time. Once people actually make the move, the most common thing we hear is, I wish we did this sooner. Almost every time. Not because they hated the old house, but because they didn't realize how much mental and physical weight it was carrying until it was gone. And that's powerful. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, this sounds like me, what do I actually do now? Here's what I would tell you. Step number one, don't start packing. That's where people go wrong. The second you think downsizing, your brain wants to jump straight to, what do we do with all this stuff? And that's exactly why people freeze, because yes, the stuff matters, but it's not the first step. The step that you want to start with is step two, actually. Start with clarity. Before you do anything else, you ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like in the next chapter? Not what kind of house, not how many bedrooms, not what neighborhood. Start with lifestyle. Do you want less maintenance, single-story living, something closer to family, something easier to lock and leave when you travel? That matters way more than people realize. Now, step three, this is huge. Understand your options. A lot of homeowners are in a much stronger position than they think. If you've owned your home for a long time here in Volusia County, there's a very good chance you've built up a lot of equity over the years, and that can open doors. Sometimes the home you're in right now is the exact thing that gives you the ability to move into something that fits better. But most people don't know what that looks like until they actually sit down and look at it. And that's where strategy matters. Not pressure, not rushing, not guessing, just clarity. So if you've had that moment where you walked into a room in your house and thought, why do we even have this space anymore? Pay attention to that, because that thought usually means something. It doesn't mean you have to move tomorrow. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to make some giant life decision this week. But it probably does mean it's time to start looking around at your options. If you're here in Volusia County and you want help figuring that out, what it might look for you, just reach out. Give us a call or a text. We're happy to help you think through it. Simple, clear, and with no pressure. And if this video hit home for you, subscribe, because I'm going to keep making videos just like this for homeowners who are trying to make smart, low-stress decisions about what comes next. Thanks for listening.